Vinci, welcome to the show, man. For the people that don't know, he is a real estate investor. He paid down all of his student loans, became financially free in a matter of under 2 years. And he's done everything from doing e-commerce to trying out automated YouTube to whatever side gig you can think of. And real estate was like the big thing, all while having a child on the way and starting a new family. So today we definitely want to bridge the gap of how do you start a family and a new business and keep it sustainable while also running a full-time does. So Vinci, welcome to the show, man.
Patrick, thank you so much for having me over. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience and the people here about everything real estate investing and just life in general and how to go through it all. Yeah, man.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention also, Vinci, you are doing coaching now, right?
I am, Patrick. Yes, I am. I am doing coaching. We are coaching other students on how to start, operate, and run a short-term rental business, even while you have a full-time job, even while you have kids, even when you have student loan debt. It's something that I feel that while a lot of people say it's not for everyone, I believe anyone can do it.
That's amazing. And also, I want to congratulate you because this is the first time we're speaking since at least at the air of this episode, where you just got a 111 unit under contract.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think, yeah, thank you for that, Patrick. We just closed on a 111 unit A- class apartment in the suburbs of Dallas, Texas.
That's
And
amazing.
my team and I are extremely excited for that. Definitely blessed to be able to have the opportunity to do. It's something, one of those bucket list items that you
Yep.
always want to get into. When you start real estate investing, you hear a lot of people say, hey, they're able to get into a large multifamily or an apartment building. And so for myself, that has been on my bucket list for quite some time.
That's amazing, especially because you're what, like 30 years old?
I am 31. So,
31.
Yeah.
That is
We
crazy.
can say I'm 30. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, no, but that's also just insane. You're 30, you have a full-time job, you have a kid, you have this 111 unit under contract, and you still have your job. And you're making over 6 figures, well over 6 figures in short-term rental income on top of everything else you're doing. It's quite insane how you do this. So let's start with how Vinci even got into financial freedom and all this other stuff.
Well, yeah, thanks, Patrick. Let's see here. Okay, first of all, everyone, I grew up in Southern California. I am an immigrant. I was born in the Philippines. I came here when I was, about 3 years old. I swam here from the PI. And I would say growing up in Southern California, specifically Southeast LA. So shout out to all my 562 area code brothers out there and sisters. Growing up in that area in B-Town, Bellflower, it wasn't the best neighborhood. It wasn't the best area. But my parents were extremely hardworking. And although they never really taught us about personal finance or real estate investing or investing in general, I think a lot of what we saw growing up from our environment gave us that desire to want something better and to want something better for not just ourselves, but for our own family and for our future. And so that's really what stems it off as when I was younger. And then coming in now, I started real estate investing back in 2015. So I was a young 23, recently graduated from engineering school, and I was told, hey, if you want to go buy a house, you have to have 2 years of previous taxes to showcase that you can qualify. So I was like, all right, 2 years. Graduated 21. As soon as I hit 23 and hit my 2-year mark from working, I went house hunting. And our first property was a house hack, and I ended up renting that out to students. I had no idea it was even termed as a house hack. Never heard of Bigger Pockets back then, but until 2017 when I bought my first out-of-state property and Patrick's gonna love this.
Chicago, baby. Chicago boys up. Everyone represent.
That's right. And we bought another one out there, so we ended up having 2 long-term rentals in Chicago. We had our house hack in 2015 out here in Southern California, renting out rooms to other students, which we can also go over that if you'd like. But that kind of really allowed us to be able to jumpstart our financial independence journey, Patrick,
Yeah.
and allowed us to save money, but as well as learn a little bit about real estate investing. And I really highly recommend anyone to get into who wants to get into real estate investing, especially if they're young, to try house hacking.
Yeah. And I 100% recommend to people house hacking. It's one of the most affordable ways to get into real estate investing. And definitely look into it. We don't have to go too deep into house hacking per se, but more or less, house hacking for the people that are listening is essentially buying a house and renting out the other rooms or the other units, and that pays for your mortgage. So instead of paying for rent, you can actually have other people pay for your rent and your mortgage if you get a good deal. That's the premise of it. On top of that, you can get in at 3.5% down if you use an FHA loan, and if you live there for 12 months. Then
That's
you
right.
can move out, you can rent that out to somebody else and do it again, baby. And that's the power of real estate. So
that is, yeah.
Yeah.
And it really is. And from house hacking, there's a lot of benefits to that, but it also allows you to learn how to start managing also your own. And that was the premise for us being able to self-manage our own short-term rentals. Back on this timeline or journey here, 2015 house hack, 2017, 18, we bought our 2 long-term rentals. And my wife and I, we got married in 2018. And the beginning of 2019.
Shout out to Patricia, though.
Yeah, my wife, Patricia, for sure.
She is a rock star. From what I've at least talked to you about, she's been your supporting grace for all of this stuff.
She has, man. And I was an amazing wife, best friend of mine, and now mother to our beautiful daughter, Serenity. I can't thank her enough for the journey that we've gone through together and what we've done together. And so really, honestly, people ask how we've been able to do things. And honestly, we both wouldn't have been able to do any of this stuff without each other and without the support of this, because it's not all rainbows and butterflies. Real estate investing, It's not. And it takes a team.
Yeah. And so also a stress, at least from my experience, I feel like I do better when I have a strong woman that is roles aside, gender roles or whatever, just as a supporting partner to our relationship. Brother. It is amazing. And I support her in everything she does. And it's just such a amazing relationship. And I think that I've seen that where a lot of successful guys will pretty much look to the woman as their strong power supporter to allow them to do what they do. And it seems to be pretty aligned here with you too, Vinci, which is awesome.
It is. We definitely wouldn't be in the place we are now if it wasn't for her loving support, and for just also going through all my ridiculous ideas, right? Like we have these crazy ideas that we sometimes have, all right? And our wives kind of like just look at us and wait a minute, all right, let's think about this logically.
They ground you a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like the way I describe our relationship sometimes is, and I've heard of this before, and I like to use that same analogy, but essentially I feel like I am when you're throwing up a kite at the beach or something, and it's like going crazy in the wind.
Yeah.
If you let that kite go, it's just gonna go and sail off into the unknown. And I'm like that kite. My wife is the one guiding me. She's the one holding the strings that's tethered to that kite. So that if it wasn't for her, I'd be wildly pursuing so many different things that could honestly crash and burn me and our entire savings and all of us. And my wife is able to be there with me, and together the sky's the limit. We're able to fly high while enjoy the view. We're able to do it together. So
100%. You get together, you go together farther. So that's like the whole premise. So great. You have going back to the story, you have your first house hack. Then you start getting into long-term rentals in Chicago. What's next?
Exactly. So my wife and I, we made a decision to go ahead and consolidate our student loans. We had
how much did you have in student loans at this time?
We had $147,000.
Wow.
And $6.74.
Super specific. Can we just round it up to 150?
Sure. So 147,000, almost 150,000 of student loans. Beginning of 2019, we decided to start exactly from January, and we decided to go ahead and make a conscious decision to pay it off.
Wow.
Okay. And we were able to pay off $147,000 in 14 months. And
Wow.
that was probably one of the biggest and best decisions that we've ever made. A lot of people tell us that, hey, there's a lot of opportunity costs that could have been involved where you could have invested in somewhere else and whatnot. But I'll tell you a couple things. First of all, peace of mind, right? It helps us sleep at night knowing that we don't have this huge hovering over us.
Aren't student loans the only debt that you can't wipe out even if you go bankrupt?
That is right, Patrick.
That's a lot of stress.
It's a lot of stress. That's right though. In bankruptcy, when someone declares bankruptcy, student loans is one of the only forms of debt that actually doesn't go away. And that's huge. That's huge. And so we weren't waiting for the government to bail us out. We weren't waiting for other help to wipe it out. No, we decided to be intentional about our money and decided to pay it off as soon as we can. Again, I spoke about how there may be opportunity costs and putting that money elsewhere. Honestly, we already had plans to put our money to work for us. And even though this was, by the time we paid it off, 2019 in 14 months. So that was February 2020. We all know what happened March 2020, right? COVID hit. The entire world was shut down and everything was uncertain, and we didn't know. There was a bit of a market crash as well with COVID, but we held true to our plan. And because we set intentional goals and we set together a money plan, we were actually able to continue to invest. And as they always say, when one door closes, another opens. So.
Perfect. So chaos ensues. I feel like this is a common thread here in the short-term rental investing world, at least. And you start realizing, okay, great. Short-term rentals, how do they come into the picture?
Yeah, no, so stepping into short-term rentals, again, I guess just hitting back on the student loans, when we were able to pay that off, you were actually able to by getting rid of the student loan debt, your debt to income ratio was a lot more favorable, which allowed us to be able to find other opportunities to purchase more real estate. And so after the student loans were paid off, we began house hunting for more different properties. And I was looking at long-term rentals at that time. However, during 2020, during the shutdown, we began looking at a lot more YouTube videos and listening and reading a lot more. And we ran into some YouTube videos that were talking about short-term rentals, and specifically Joshua Tree and Yucca Valley area.
Wait, do you remember whose video you watched?
Yeah, we were watching Rob Built's YouTube video. And funny, one of my friends, let's see here, cousin was actually Rob's roommate in LA, I think, when he was living there in LA still. And so we decided to all hop on a call. I met Rob, I met the cousin, and we were talking about short-term rentals. At this time, my friend and I wanted to go ahead and start looking for short-term rentals in Joshua Tree. So we began hunting out there. We visited so many properties. We began putting down offers, but just like everyone and their moms during 2020, everyone else was also putting in their offers. They were accepting offers like about 100 to 200 grand over asking price.
Wow.
Which is a lot different now, Patrick. The shift in the market now is totally
at least
different.
Now, at the time of this recording, for sure.
For sure. And so we decided to go ahead and do there. But then I also found out about a very popular short-term rental market called the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee.
There you go.
And so simultaneously, while we were looking in Joshua Tree, we were also looking in the Smoky Mountains. I got connected with a realtor out there and just began looking. And I just began combing the MLS, putting out offers. And then one day, I would say like around March, April of 2021, we got 2 offers accepted on the same, like really less than 24 hours within each other on the same day. And one was in the Smokies and one was in Joshua Tree.
That's hilarious. I never heard of this part of the story, honestly. So that's shocking to me. That's hilarious.
It was it was pretty ridiculous because getting offers accepted on two properties at the same time, I don't know if we'll ever do it again, just qualifying for loans and all of that, but we were actually approved to purchase both properties. And we ended up purchasing the Joshua Tree property as well as the property in the Smoky Mountains essentially at the same time. We went live with our first short-term rental, the Creekside Cabin in the Smokies, in June of 2021, and went live with the Desert Gold, which is our Joshua Tree property, in July of 2021.
That is
And
hilarious. So while people say, you know what, just get one rental, try it out, see if you like short-term rentals. Vinci says, you know what, I'm just gonna get two in two different areas. I can't decide which market, so I'm just gonna do both markets. Screw it, you know. That's funny.
Exactly. And my wife and I, we had this talk. We're like, hey, getting two of these properties at the same time, is that really smart? I'm like, you know what? There's been so many offers out there. I know I've studied both markets. We've studied it extensively, and we decided to just go for it. And at this time, my wife was 5 months pregnant when we went to visit our short-term rental in the Smoky Mountains. And so 5 months pregnant, my wife and I went over there and we began setting up our cabin, our first short-term rental, not knowing what the heck to do, what we're doing, what this was going to look like. But we knew running the numbers and honestly, like speaking with a lot of people who've been there and done it gave us that confidence to go ahead and say, all right, I think this can be done. I think we can push for this.
Can I ask a question here? For people might be curious, how did you have the courage to put two properties under contract while putting a baby into the world at the same time? So what was that all? What was the thought process there? Did that just all happen at once and you didn't know what was happening, or was that a shock to you?
I think looking at it that way, but just changing your mindset about it and thinking about it this way. We're having a baby soon. We're going to have a little beautiful baby that's going to be completely 100% dependent on mom and dad, on us.
Yep.
And so we have to hustle. We had to go ahead and overcome that fear of running, let's say, two at a time or getting started in something like this, a completely new business model where we've never done short-term rentals before, ran an Airbnb before, and it was daunting. But Serenity, my daughter, that's her name, she was our inspiration, our motivation for doing what we're doing here. And this is something that I talk a lot to a lot of people, tell people a lot, is anything you're trying to get into, one of the first questions I always ask, at least my mentees, also the ones that I'm coaching, what's your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? What is the end goal for you? What is that driving factor that's driving you to go through this? You have to determine that first before you can move forward, because any decision that you make from here on out has to align with that why. And for us, raising a family and having a kid and going through life with them, that was my why. And so I wanted to be able to provide for them. And like I mentioned to you, growing up in like the crappiest area and the shittiest town and with a not so great area and not so great environment, as an immigrant as well, born in a different country where English was not my first language, I would say there was a lot of motivation for me to go headstrong and go for it. And there wasn't really any excuses for me not to. And so I had every excuse to tell myself no, but in reality, it's your life or your money, right?
Yeah, 100%. So you said that you're the kite and you just reach for the stars, right? Was Patricia, your wife, was she reeling the kite back at any point during that decision process in framing the mind that, hey, Vinci, we have a kid on the way. We have to provide for this kid. We need money for the kid, not for your little properties that you're obsessing over for the last 3 months on YouTube.
Yeah.
Let's take it one step at a time. Let's just do one for now, or let's take it because I think the kid needs money. Or did you guys have money in reserves, or how did that planning process work for you guys? Or did you guys just risk it all and just it worked out the way it did? So I'm just curious what your thought process was on mitigating risk as much as possible.
No, Patrick, great question. So before we jumped into this, again, being able to pay off our student loans, and literally we have no other debt. Like we have no car debt. The cars that we have, we bought them at auctions. Okay. When we bought them all cash. Okay. And with no debt. And at that time as well, we were living back in Riverside. We weren't house hacking anymore, but we were able to put together a plan for our budget. And we didn't touch actually our savings for any of these short-term rental investments in Joshua Tree or Tennessee. We didn't. What we ended up doing was, because of that first house hack that I bought, I actually pulled out a HELOC from it. A HELOC is a home equity line of credit. I was able to take advantage and leverage the home equity line of credit to purchase those 2 properties. And so I think.
Can I ask a question then about that HELOC, about that first property? How much money were you making cash flow off that one?
Let's see. So let's start with, you want to start with Creekside Cabin?
No, I'm talking about the house hack. How much was it producing at this time? How much was it producing cash flow?
Oh, okay. So let's see here. Our mortgage on it was about $1,200, $1,300.
Okay.
And that includes everything, PITI. And when we were house hacking it, we were grossing about $3,200 a month on it. A month. That's pretty good. Paid off our mortgage, and we were able to pretty much pocket close to $2,000 a month.
Okay, that's insane. I was trying to allude to the fact that sometimes properties that you buy in the past, your first investments, they might be discouraging to some people where you're not making as much money. You're just got into real estate and you feel as, hey, I'm not being wealthy. It's telling me on TikTok off of one property, and they get discouraged. But I was trying to demonstrate that with years later, with all this appreciation in the property, you were able to pull money out and buy another property. And that's where the power of real estate really comes in, is when you start leveraging and you start pulling from other sources. So that's why the first deal, you should never bank on appreciation ever. Make sure to run the numbers, but it's definitely incentive later down the road.
It was. And I think just kind of your first deal is not going to be a home run. But that's what I tell a lot of people who want to get started in real estate investing. Your first deal allows you to get a lot of lessons learned from it and to fail forward, right? As you go ahead and take action, you can begin to start gaining that confidence in taking on another deal and taking on another property. Because once you've taken those first few steps, it gives you that courage to go ahead and start jogging. And then after that, you'll be running. And then after that, you'll be going on for a full sprint.
That's kind of like you're a kid, right? It's starting to walk now.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. She's starting to walk now. And so
she bought her first property, basically.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised of how fast that kind of like comes together. Yeah, you're crawling, and then you start taking some wobbly steps. Next thing, she'll be running around and sprinting around, and I'm chasing after her. Yeah, but that's kind of like real estate investing.
It is.
You get excited about it. You see that proof of concept works, and you decide, I got to go all in, and you kind of keep pushing forward to it.
100%.
So yeah,
that's awesome. So you leverage the HELOC to buy the second property, and then you sum
properties at the same time
to both with the HELOC. Got it.
With the HELOC.
Now you still have savings, so you're really not. You still have enough money to be able to pay for anything that comes up with the kid, or God forbid, any emergencies.
Exactly.
So it's not like you just leverage everything that you had to buy this property. You still made a sound financial decision, and it's been working out. So
that's the only way to convince my wife, man, because she had those exact same concerns that you were brought up, Patrick. Yeah. Hey, should we just go ahead and scale it to one first and not two? But then we talked it over a little bit more, and we weren't touching our savings. We were essentially taking our existing investment and reinvesting it into other properties. And so that first property that we house hacked, we were able to pull that HELOC and buy these two short-term rentals that are now producing more cash flow, and has essentially retired my wife and gave her the opportunity to not work. And so,
Wow.
and that was huge for us. And that probably allowed us to really see this as a way for us to reach financial independence much faster than other conventional routes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And honestly, the fact that you pulled that off, that's amazing. It's around the same time that we started talking and started meeting online, because you were
Yeah,
posting
let's
a
talk
bunch.
about that. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that,
So
Patrick. Yeah, why
yeah.
don't you tell
So
the
I
audience
met
like how you met me?
yeah. So I met Vinci through a groups essentially. And I saw what Vinci was doing, and he kept commenting on my posts. And it was like this cool, I don't know, he was just super giving and super helpful. He was already mentoring people way before this new venture right now with mentoring. He was actually mentoring me. So that's the cool thing, is he literally, he bought it in July, right? Your first rental.
We went live
got,
June.
you
Yeah.
got it up in June.
Yeah, we
Okay.
got it up in June.
So I was looking for rentals in July, put under contract around like mid to late July. And then around August, I had my first short-term rental. And about that time, Vinci he had two under his belt, but they were both at the same time. He was only doing it for a month, but he was helping me with my short-term rental. So it's funny because people expect you to be this crazy expert before you give back. And I would say that you don't have to be this crazy up and coming. Let's just say you don't have to be Grant Cardone to teach people certain things, because as long as you're a few steps ahead and you've demonstrated a process that works and a framework that works, you can teach it to other people. And that's honestly, I'm going to toot my own horn here just a little bit. That is why I did this podcast, right? I do want to give back to people and document other people's journeys. But am I where I really want to be? Ideally, no. And did I think I was perfect the moment I started my first meetup and was teaching people and telling people how to do things? No. Was I being realistic with people? Yes. I told them. I tell them exactly what happens. I'm very transparent. But the thing about people like Vinci and I is we just like to give back. That's in our nature, and that's what we like to do. Anybody that reaches out, no matter where you are at with your journey, from either starting from scratch or have a few rentals, there's always something we can teach each other. And I'm sure there's something you can teach me. I don't know everything. It's a learning game, babies.
Yeah.
That's what we're out here to do.
That's right. It was monumental, and I think connecting and with others, especially in the time that we are in now, where we're in a digital age, able to speak with people and not even meet them in person and have a great relationship with them. Patrick, like you and I have only met in person, like what, just a few times, like probably less than 5 times.
I know.
Right? But you and I talk all the time.
I give him the biggest bear hug ever. Every time I meet him, it's weird the way that people meet like online now. I remember from have you gamed ever? Were you a gamer?
Yeah.
You were.
I wasn't a hardcore gamer, but I have gamed plenty back in the day. Yeah.
For sure. But you've connected with other people online. You're like, oh, this is my friend that I just know online. And then all of a sudden you've never met him, but like you've talked to him every day. I've had people like that. And now it's like in adult world, we have the same thing with Facebook groups. And when I see Vinci, he always gives me that secret handshake with the clap and then the snap. And I'm like, all right, this guy's got a lot of swag about him. I can't be that cool, but I'll try.
Oh, Patrick. Yeah. And I think the power of networking is amazing, because that's how essentially my wife and I were able to go from those 2 short-term rentals starting in June 2021. And now it's the new year, January 3 here, but we're able to accelerate that to 6 short-term rentals, actually 7. And we were actually building an 8th one right now in the Smokies as well. And we're across 4 states now and 5 different markets, and across those 6, 7 properties. And it's all because of networking. with other people, like-minded folks, just like you and me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best things to get started, is to just start talking to everyone and anyone about what you're doing. You'll never know who ends up picking up on that and could be your next partner.
Hey, can I ask you a question? Would you be where you are today if you didn't engage in Facebook groups, didn't go network? Just honestly, straight up honestly.
We wouldn't. We absolutely wouldn't. Honestly, we going on Clubhouse and going on Instagram, going on Facebook groups, connecting with those like-minded folks or those people in general, not knowing what to say yet. Let's say you don't even have a property yet, but just connecting with others in the space, in the industry this way, was one of the biggest game changers. And Patrick, that's how we were able to close our 111 unit.
I was going to go to that.
In the suburbs of Dallas, Texas. And my partners and I, you know what's funny? My partners and I, for that property, we have never met all together in person yet. Like I have 3 other partners, so the 4 of us, we have never met in person at the same time together.
But you met Josh though, right?
No, I met each of them individually.
Got it.
Maybe some of them like together as well. Never have we all 4 of us met together at one time in person, and that is just ridiculous. We talk every other day, almost every day.
Yeah,
we talk every week for sure. And so that's one of the funniest things about these things. Like, you're not able to get to where you are or get where you want to be just by doing everything yourself.
Yeah.
Real estate doesn't work that way. It's networking with other people, connecting with other people, because you can never get to where you are without that agent, without that broker, without that lender, without that friend, and running a short-term rental, without your cleaners, without your maintenance folks, without your boots on the ground. You just need people, and people will always be around.
Yeah. And I will contribute my success to the fact that I've networked as well. The reason I started STR Nation was for that specific reason: is 1, education, and 2 is just the community. And so we have the Facebook group. If anybody listening wants to join STR Nation, feel free to join. Vinci's in there as well. He'll comment here and there. Keep in mind, he has a little child, but he tries, and he does come out to events, and we do events once a month as well. But there's a lot of people that put on events and try to really engage with the communities wherever you are. And you got to find that crew of people, because I think that's so critical. Like you said, meeting these people. I see a clear distinction from the clients that I work with, that I do consulting for, and the client and the students / mentees that I have under my belt. The ones that succeed, hands down, are the ones that actually show up. And maybe Vinci, you could tell me from your experience how it is, but from my experience, the ones that show up not only to our calls and our talks and follow up with me, but also to the meetings that we have once a month, to any events that are going on that are online, like webinars that we put on, or just, I see these people over and over again. And when I see those people over and over again and they're taking action, it's big.
Yeah. And I think to just jump off of that as well, Patrick, one of the things that I always tell everyone, really, I shout it out to the world, this phrase all the time. A lot of people think knowledge is power. Knowledge is not power. And I always tell them it's the application of knowledge that is power. Because if you're not able to apply any of the things that you're learning or reading, then you're not going anywhere. If you're not taking that step to go ahead and meet other people and network with other individuals, then you're wasting all this knowledge that you've been accumulating, to be honest.
Right.
You can read every book, you can listen to every podcast, you can watch every YouTube channel or reel that talks about investing. But until you apply that knowledge, until you take action, you won't go anywhere.
I will say this, because I do have a podcast, and I technically should be incentivized for people to stay on and just listen. But if you're one of those people that can't listen and not take action, please hop off this podcast. I hate to be that guy, but honestly, take action, be in the real world, and watch the podcast if you can. Continuing education is great. Feel inspired if you need to, but at a certain point, you have to take action. That's kind of what I'm saying. Yeah.
And it's okay for people who want to who are like gathering knowledge first about things, but
Yep.
then you start getting into analysis paralysis phase, and you
Right.
don't want to get into that. So you know what? Call Patrick, call me, right? Hit us up on our Instagram handles, right? Which I'm sure Patrick will provide here as well. And just DM us and get on a call with us, or go ahead and ask us some questions and just get started.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best things you can do.
100%. I do want to jump into the last 3 questions here and close this off.
Sure.
I will sometimes, for some episodes, I do provide a special question. So for this episode, Vinci, I will provide you a special question. Okay. Just for you. Special just for you. You're special. Okay. Special. Number 1, what are the future plans for Vinci? What's Vinci up to?
All right. So 2023 goals. And I think this kind of aligns with what we're trying to do here. One of my biggest goals for 2023, let's say priority wise on a personal level, is health. Health for myself and my family. And that just doesn't mean physical health, but also mental health. Yep. And so a part of that mental health is being able to, we have this growing short-term rental portfolio, and then it's a very active business. Like, it's no joke, guys. If you think everything is passive, short-term rentals, running an Airbnb, even mid-term rentals, this real estate investing is not passive. You can make it to a certain point where it's passive enough for you. So what we're actually doing is we just hired an operations manager, and we're going to be building out a team where they can take up our day-to-day operations of the business, and we can focus on growing the business rather than working in the business. And so that's one of the biggest mindsets and goals that we have for this year. And that will align with our mental health, because with a 1-year-old who's growing and walking now, and soon running around, that's going to be taking up a lot of my time. And so,
Vinci, what you're really saying is that once Serenity is running, you're going to have to be fit to be able to run after her and catch her.
Exactly. And not only do I have to be fit, I have to make sure I'm not always on my phone answering guest messages all the time. But no, that is key and crucial for our business, but also for my personal life.
Your kids they're only going to go through these years once, and it's a very special time for a lot of parents, so you don't want to miss those years. And I think that's really important to run it like a business for anybody that's looking to start a family. And let's bounce off of that to the next question. This is a special question for you, Vinci.
Sure, let's do it.
The people that are listening that have families or are young kids, are looking to get young kids and start a family at the same time as real estate investing, how do you manage both of those at once? What advice do you have to really, like, step by step, get them to that point where they're buying their first property?
Man, okay. So we are still in the midst of really learning ourselves. Again, my daughter, she's 15 months and just over a year old. And we're like going through that, learning and continually going through that. But I would say one of the best things that we did when starting out a new business and having a newborn was to make sure that you communicate with your spouse expectations. Like, you have to learn how to manage expectations with each other. There's going to be times where, you're both going to be just burnt out from lack of sleep, lack of rest, and just like having to go through all the different tumbles of being a new parent and learning all of that. I think communicating with your spouse, communicating with my wife on, what the expectations are, who's going to be doing what, and what the other person will be expected to do. And I think having that conversation may be maybe difficult to start, but I think it's necessary to have, especially at the very beginning. And I would say that's more of a lesson learned for me, because there was some parts where we didn't do that. And looking back now, I think that would have been really helpful if we spoke it out with each other and communicated with one another. Hey, we both knew we were going to get into this new business, but what does that really mean? It's going to take time away from both of us in general. And so we have to make sure that we communicate with each other. And that's probably the biggest takeaway from the past 15 months that we've had Serenity and running this newfound business and getting it to where we are now. This is a $3.5 million Airbnb portfolio that we put together in literally less than a year. And so I think I think that communication and managing expectation is key in order for you to have a be able to coexist and raise your child and make sure that you are running things a little smoothly. And you're going to hit hiccups. There's going to be a lot of bumps along the way and things are going to change, but making sure that you also touch base with your wife and make sure, my gosh, regardless if you're running a new business or not, you got to be going into this like you're always dating your spouse. So my wife and I, we make time to go ahead and continue to date each other. We continue to still have date nights and make sure that we both have our what we call me time, right?
Us time.
And us time, me time and us time, because you're going to
Yes.
need that, especially when you got a little one. And yes,
You
there's
think
not a lot of
dividing
time.
up responsibilities helps with that as well?
I think it does, Patrick. I think laying out those expectations and the responsibilities of, let's say, hey, from if I'm working my full-time job from, let's say, 9 to 5, what I'll be taking care of our little one or doing something else with her, with the family from 5 to 9, right? Until she goes down. And then from 9 p.m. to like midnight or 1 a.m., I'm working back on this business here. That's very high level of how things go, but there's a lot of time where that kind of interweaves throughout the entire day, but that's kind of the way you want to think about it. So there was and again, I can't thank my wife enough for all the support that she's given me and all the support that she's put into this business as well, because we both wouldn't have been able to get to this if we didn't communicate this out with each other. And so that's my biggest takeaway.
That's awesome. I'll let that sink in for everybody. Mic drop. And the last question is going to be very underwhelming to that response, but let's just say, what's your favorite book that you've read? And it doesn't have to be real estate related. It could be a children's book.
Okay, it can be a children's book. Okay, first of all, the book that really got me started into real estate investing, or just in general, even a mindset book. And I know a lot of people say Rich Dad Poor Dad, right, by Robert Kiyosaki.
That's 50% of the answers.
Exactly. But honestly, I would have to say that book truly changed my mindset. And I recommend that book to anyone who wants to just think about not just how money works and looking at it from a real estate investing point of view, but just in general, what you're doing now and what kind of life do you want to lead for yourself and your family, and what you're doing as a, let's say, W-2 9 to 5 worker, and how other people in the world are doing it. Because I didn't even know there's this whole other side of working that you could do and accomplish. Had no idea until it opened my eyes. And if once you unlock that and your mind, you start to get curious and you start like reaching out to other people, networking, you just open a whole lot of doors. And
you open a door, yeah, or multiple doors.
It's a floodgate, essentially. You've opened up the floodgate and now you're in it. So now the next question is, now what are you going to do with that knowledge? Are you just going to keep it in? Are you going to apply it? Remember, application of knowledge is power. Awesome. Not knowledge is power. Application of knowledge is power. And so that is my favorite book.
That was it was a common book recommendation, but it was a good explanation how it changed you, because books impact people differently. And that book was just that initial step. And that's why I recommend it to all my mentees and to the people that are listening. So definitely read that book if you haven't. It's a no-brainer. It's like the prerequisite. And so, Vinci, how can people reach you if they have the questions for you, or they have something that they can help you with, or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach me on really any social media platform, Instagram or even Facebook. My handle is Vinci_Sevilla_Jr. So that's VINCI_SEVIA_JR. And yeah, feel free to DM me, follow me along on my journey. I'm happy to connect with you and anyone else on their path to real estate investing and financial freedom. That's one of the biggest things that I love doing, is educating others about personal finance and real estate investing. And that's one of the things that like I love doing. And so it's something that if you hit me up, I'm going to answer that question if my daughter gives me some time to do. Yeah.
That's so funny.
But yeah, you can reach me anywhere on those. Really happy to. And again, not to toot my own horn here, but you spoke about books. There is a new book coming out this year in March, called Hospitable Hosts. And so if you are interested in short-term rental investing and learning from other hosts from around the world, there is this amazing book coming out. Again, Hospitable Hosts. And I will actually be writing a chapter in that book as well. When it comes out in March, feel free to pick one up and you can get an inside look of all the different stories from hosts around the world, including my own, and I specifically talk about how it was running a business while having a newborn in there. Yeah.
Amazing. So yeah, this is just a sneak peek to that. And thank you so much, Vinci, for hopping out. Like, you're a big brother to me. I honestly appreciate you so much. And thanks for just giving back as well. Another really giving person in the community. So thanks, Vinci.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much.
Hey, have a good one.